Everyone. It looks like we now have a quorum with one, two, three, four, five members present. Um, First question to the group is, are there any adjustments to the agenda? The main thing we have to vote on today is a gateway sign designer. We can go over a few other things, but does anyone have anything new to bring up, or are we good with this agenda?
Good with this. Are good.
Yep, good here.
All right. Um, I don't see any citizens. We have two sets of minutes to approve. Has everyone had a chance who would like to review them?
Yes.
Uh, Thank you, Rebecca, for your great efforts at providing us a set of concise minutes. I really appreciate the clarity in those minutes. I think they looked good to me. So um I make a motion to approve the two sets of minutes, July and August.
I seconded. Oh,
Sonia, you can second.
I'll
I missed the
second.
last two meetings.
Sonia seconded.
Yes.
Okay. All four?
All in favor?
All in favor?
And
So I
then
have a question. If
Yeah.
Ann and I weren't there, can we legitimately approve them if we weren't there?
you
Good
can
question.
still approve them if you want.
Okay, well, I thought they were well written.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good summary of those discussions. All right, so we have all in favor. July and August minutes are entered into the record. I don't have anything really from and the chair report side of things. We had another art walk this past Friday, which was very well attended. The Great Reads for Great Art event in particular, the opening was very well attended. So that was heartening to see a lot of people walking around, and people are really taking advantage of the art walk structure to bring new events and shows to the town. So that's really encouraging to see. Max, do you have some town updates for us?
Yes. I think the big one I have is for the planning board. They're going to be meeting on September 12th, and this is for the main health building. This is about a 13,000 square foot structure for medical office spaces. The plan is available on the town website, and it's also showing how much space would be given to the town. That's about 26,000 square feet. It just the big thing I want to make sure everyone's aware of so that I don't get told that I didn't tell anyone that this was happening. Because believe it or not, people do that. The other news items I just have, people's tax bills should be going out. I believe the mill rate will be 16.9 for this year, and there will be a revaluation next year, mostly focused on land. For Sylvania, Julie and Michael Amico were spreading the word about the surveys that are going on right now. If you haven't, they are online. We want to hear people's ideas about what should be done at Sylvania and potential names so that we can get Miller School to vote on three of the best name choices. Parky McPark Face is my submission. I'm hoping that will get some traction. We'll find out. We also have a somewhat of an updated layout for Pine Tree, so the Sylvania committee is going to be looking at that next week. And then as these three noticed when they came in, we're doing some HVAC upgrades here at the town office. Midcoast Energy is already doing their work to upgrade our system, so it's a lot more energy efficient. Can't really tell from this room because of the AC units, but yeah, we're starting to get that work going. And then this isn't really a community item, but this is something I would like to give some awareness of in case someone happens to know someone. But there is something known as a permanent rate buy down program that is operating through the Federal Home Loan Bank in Boston and also local Maine banks. This is a very unique program that's offered right now where someone with a mortgage can apply to get something that is at least 2% under the market rate. This is only for those who have less than 80% of the area median income. So in this case, if you know someone whose household income is below $75,920, and they are they have a pretty high mortgage rate, this would be the program to go in for right now. So with, I think 6.7 is the current market rate. So they can apply through a main bank for 4.7.
That's fantastic.
That's some meaningful relief.
So if you know someone who hates their mortgages, by all means, let them know of this program.
Is there a deadline or is there a,
Um,
expiration date for that program?
I have not found one, but I've seen, I think it's to the end of the year, but I don't quote me on that one. It's more of just let people know now, and
Yeah.
I can provide a link to anyone who's interested.
If I can get that later, I want to share that with some folks.
Yeah, I'll send it to the EDC afterwards.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that's a really powerful tool. Okay, thank you, Max. We're on to old business. I think actually why don't we flip this around? We don't have Jan for food pantry, so I think we can skip that. And do you want to just give us a quick update on the status with the photos and website draft pages?
Absolutely. I've got a great assortment of photos from Becky and primarily from Jan Griesenbach. He keeps periodically sending me some others. There are, there's a much nicer assortment now than what I'd had a little while earlier. Julie has asked that I sit down with her and we can muck about with website. And so now that I need to do a little more homework, just going over and coming up with a sort of, here are 3 candidate photos for page 1. I mean, we have 4 pages, maybe 5 pages. So it's not like it's going to take forever. And so I'll pull that together and then I'll sit down with her and we'll get a draft together. If people would like to see the candidate photos, I can certainly send them out. Or we can wait until they're kind of attached to the new pages where you guys have seen all the text. All the text has been approved. And then we can see it before it goes live if you'd prefer to see it sort of with everything kind of sorted in, and then you can say, I'd rather see the photo on page 1 on page 2, or do we have any photos that show, a barista pulling a coffee or something like that. So I am inclined, just because the way that my brain works is I would rather see the pages mocked up in full. But if you guys would rather see the candidate photos along with the candidate, here's page 1, blah, 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 blah. And then here are the photos, 1, 2, 3 that we're considering. We can certainly do that.
I would say it'd be easy enough to mock up the pages in full, and you can distribute that, or you can send links, even if they're not live.
Yeah.
And we can easily say, swap this one out. We can do that between now and the next meeting.
Okay, great. Just to let folks know how I'm looking at these photos is I'm trying to get different seasons in Waldoboro, so it's not all the current season. Trying to show things like shots from the art walk, so we see people outside doing things. We all, a couple of photos of the town that look like a couple of these paintings here that don't have lots of people, but really trying to give a sense of what the downtown is like, what some of the different little areas look like, and different seasons. So that's kind of, for want of anything better, that's my philosophy on this.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and if anybody has any photos that you've taken that you really think portray downtown Waldoboro in sort of an interesting, appealing light, ship them to me.
Are you gonna focus on downtown Waldoboro or some of the parks? I found the River Walk the other day. I took some pretty pictures of that. I'll send them.
Love to see them. Thanks.
Ruben, I guess we're kind of we can put this one to bed now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the word broadband anytime you want me to, but we're at that waiting stage. It's done. I'm moving my side tasks onto digital equity stuff, which is in early phases. That's not really a direct EDC thing, but I can, when there's news, I'm happy to share that. When I say starting, I mean, I've been to one listening session and I have another meeting in 6 weeks. And that's what the Maine Connectivity Authority is doing now. Now that this dog has caught the car, what do we do with it?
Yeah.
So
That sounds great, Ruben.
It-
The
this-
digital
this is
equity.
exciting.
Can you just in case anybody's watching or is reviewing this later, can you just give us a concise definition of digital equity?
oh, yeah, it's not just everyone having the internet, it's everyone being able to afford access to it and having the peripherals to use it. If you have the internet but no computer, tablet, or smartphone, it doesn't matter a whole lot. Or if the internet's out of your means to pay for at some level, it doesn't mean a whole lot. So now that we're gonna be able to get it to every address, everyone needs to be able to access it. The only other thing I'll add to that is where, we got a lot of smart people that worry about money. The way it's being done will also make it competitive enough to be affordable without us spending yet more public money, which is a nice bonus to what we're achieving.
It's fantastic.
We
Thank you.
also have a digital equity program in Maine that's funded by, I think, the federal, the feds. So if you look up digital equity in Maine, you'll find it.
We
Okay.
do, and the Maine Connectivity Authority is part of that. That's what I'm interfacing with.
Great. So let's move forward to the sign designer responses to the RFP. So we had two. Has everybody had a chance to review both of these?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I just want to start the discussion by emphasizing the timeline here. Because these things kind of take several months to review, and we can only meet once a month as a committee. My preference is to move as soon as possible. And we have a difference in timeline between these two proposals. So Cindy could start right away, whereas Medomic Design could start in the spring. So before we start talking about the strengths of these candidates, I just wanted to emphasize that point. But I'm happy to open the floor now to anybody's thoughts about these two proposals. Anne.
I'd just like to start by saying I think that they're both really strong proposals, and I think we're super lucky to have been able to get two different but very comprehensive responses to our RFP. So, go us
Yeah, you don't always get this much data back.
and go them.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, we have different approaches. And yeah, the other thing I would emphasize is that Medomic Design has done great work for the town and for people in the town, of course, including the new website for Waldoboro Business Association. And we're lucky to have received a great proposal from them. I think that's great. On the other side, Cindy had been tapped at the beginning of this sign project. There was a start at a committee which sort of disbanded. So she's been interested in this particular project from the beginning. And she's doing really high quality work for major clients, including LL Bean. And, her expertise on this, I think, would be fantastic. So that's my feeling about these two folks. Sonia?
Well, I just noticed, of the two, I prefer, Meadowmac is the only one who's done signage. The other designer, Cindy, she just seems to have done magazine layouts and commercial stuff. She doesn't have experience with doing you have to design a sign and you have to know strengths and you have to know different things. And I don't see that Cindy had any experience showing in that.
I think that's a good point.
Oh, she seems very eager and stuff. And the only other comment I had was, it's like we got the RFP, but nobody provided a sketch of their ideas. of what they were thinking of for the signage. So it just seems like we're picking a designer, but we don't know what we're picking them to do. And I would want to see what their ideas are of the sign. It doesn't have to be a full-blown drawn-out thing, but a little sketch of what they think, or I think we need to decide what we're looking for
Me,
type of thing, so we can give them a clearer idea.
from what I understood in the RFP, that's kind of what they're gonna be doing as part of the work that they're gonna be paid for. They're gonna come here and we're gonna talk about what we are looking for.
Okay, but
And I agree on your point. That was something I was gonna say with Madomic. They provided their simple signage past examples. I like that one. Cindy, unless I missed something, I think Cindy was just showing more of her magazine covers, which again, we're all
And her brand work.
and her
was-
brand work.
yeah,
It's all
yeah,
the-
which is
I
all
couldn't
good.
tell what her work was. Was it just the photographs laid out on the magazine layout, or was it the text?
It was
what I-
everything you saw that she had done. So the text, the colors, the graphics, the layout, everything you saw was her work. The whole
The
thing.
packaging, she did a lot of packaging, which was interesting.
Yeah, she's done packaging for products like the soap that you saw in that document at the bottom.
So I had similar thoughts as I was reading through these two proposals. Plus, did we give them a budget?
We gave them a budget for these two signs specifically. And in terms of their design fees, they're very similar. I mean, they both kind of estimated between, 2,900 and 3,500, about half of the,
And that's for the design?
that would be for their design, for the hours that they put
Yeah.
into the design.
Okay. I can only speak of experience working with Madomic Design on the WBA website. They were easy to work with.
Mhm.
They gave us a lot of information, but they also heard us pretty clearly as we were working through it, I guess you could say, in terms of concept and what we wanted the website to accomplish
Mhm.
and so forth. I found them very helpful to deal with, and they, of course, as it's clear by all the work they've done for the town, they're very community committed to Waldoboro. And
Yeah.
so those are those things. I was really interested in both of the proposals, talking about the additional services to design other signs like wayfinding, parking, site markers, and so forth. That's it. Would they, I'm assuming that some of their, well, I shouldn't assume, but like, for instance, their colors that they use, the font and so forth would be reproduced for those types of signs. or
Exactly.
signage. Yeah, okay.
And in fact, on that point, Cindy brought something up that that had not occurred to me, which was she suggested in her proposal that not only do we coordinate these two gateway signs with whatever signs we add to that mix, parking and wayfinding, but also that schematic, those colors and fonts and shapes, icons, or whatever is part of that branded kind of identity, be extended possibly, if the town wanted, to other things like documents that the town produces, website, these other things. Now that's no one has to take that suggestion, but it's something that had not occurred to me, that actually this gateway sign could be the beginning of a very coherent kind of graphic brand for the town. That this is something that would take place over the next 10 years. Yeah. And
Well, I've got, two points on that. Absolutely agree on the idea that whoever we're working with would be creating signs, images, colors that we could use for things like, the town's stationery and so on and so forth. And I'm always looking for Waldoboro merch. I want to be able to wear my Waldoboro affiliation proudly, and it's more difficult than I'd like it to be. I've also worked with Madamic Design, Brian and Amanda. And I want to just second what Jen said about the way they listened. And we were I had to choose the colors for our house. And they didn't waltz in and say, "Oh, well, gray is the color today. This, you have to use gray," which I didn't want to use gray. And they said, "Oh, you're interested in yellow. Well, let's look at these shades of yellow." And they were just patient and they listened. I mean, I'm sure probably looking at the stuff that Cindy sent, it looked like she probably listens as well and generates a lot of ideas around things that, for me, the whole design thing is like voodoo. I know it, good design when I see it, but coming up with it is, people who can do that, as far as I'm concerned, are doing magic. So I think we're so lucky to have such a tough decision to make.
So, okay, so I have a couple of things to add. I've met Cindy a few times, and just last week, Michael, Amico, and Julie actually worked very briefly with Cindy on creating the little letters that said "New Park" when they put out materials for the Sylvania surveys that were at the Art Walk and at the Miller Open House Day. Actually, Cindy helped with that just on that day. And she was very easy to work with. Actually, they kind of said, we need to create little letters that say "New Park." And she was very responsive in coming up with patterns that would suggest a certain kind of mood. So I like the fact that she's really excited about doing this project in particular. I like that the timeline is such that literally our next meeting, we could talk to Cindy about mood boards, which is the first step for her anyways, saying, what is the feeling that we're going for? To your point, Sonia, like the beginning of this process, we have to kind of say what we do want, what we don't want, and then the designer can go from there. So those are a couple of factors that to me suggest that for this project, Cindy would be the right choice. And the other thing is, if we decide if that it's not a great fit, this is just the one project, we're not signing up right now to do this whole extensive thing. We really want this to key into future signage projects, but currently we're talking about doing these two signs.
Yep.
So that's my feeling about it. And I just kind of feel like Cindy is going to have a really good eye for something that can scale in several directions. Like whatever the colors, fonts, and shapes are, that's something that can key into a very coherent identity for the town, which would include merch, I think, potentially.
Hopefully before Christmas.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything else to add about this? It's a tough decision, I find.
The only thing I want to say, and Madamic does a nice job, they built a nice website. Just from a sort of emotional reaction to what I see for the art, something about what Cindy creates resonates with me a lot more. I hate "I feel" statements because I work with a lot of technology. Something about the way she in her design examples makes me feel better. I like it. It's I wish I were more artistic because I could communicate this better.
You said you hate.
I have
Go
a
ahead.
very easy time choosing her in my own mind. What she's doing, there's just something here that I'm drawn to a lot more.
You said you hate "I feel" statements in technology work, but literally this sort of work is all about "I feel." That's what we're trying to accomplish here, is to create a certain feeling about the town.
Well, in that case, I take it back. I regret nothing.
But that's exactly the language that we're trying to invoke here, is how do you create a certain feeling about Waldoboro through a coherent sort of branded, identity. So
But
that's
if the direction we want, then I feel like for me, it's an easy choice. Sorry, over you there. Go ahead.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else to add before we put this to a vote?
How many people are we missing today?
We're missing,
Jan
Alec.
and Alec. Two,
Just Alec
and Jan.
and Bob, or no?
I
Bob's
wouldn't,
not-
I wouldn't count Bob, because this is just a recommendation that's going to the select board, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he wouldn't vote anyhow.
So
Yeah,
we're just missing two people. Is that because, okay, because we think George is.
George- oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll tell you afterwards, Jen.
There's no seaweed in these images.
No seaweed.
Well, there might be, I haven't looked at it.
Sonia, we're gonna
Just
say
an
something?
additional- Well, if you talk about getting the feel, it's like, well, if I'm looking at Merrimack Design, they've worked with just about every group in this town, so they know Waldeboro.
Mm.
Does Cindy know the people of Waldeboro? Has she worked with the different groups in Waldeboro? So if you're talking about representing the town and trying to create a feel, I think they would have an advantage of already knowing and working and living in the town.
Mm.
For me, and then, but that's just my bet. That's what I was thinking, because this is a big decision and we're gonna have to think about it because a lot of people are gonna be reacting to whatever comes up.
True.
Yeah.
I think that's
So
a
we have
great
to be
point.
careful.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sonia. So what's the process from here? We make a recommendation to the select board. They let us go with it or not. And then, whoever's chosen comes up with, a process, color palette, etc., and perhaps a series of designs for us to look at. At any point, are we asking the community what they go with?
I thought both of them involved speaking with stakeholders, but I've also been reading a few things today, so maybe I'm crossing my wires here.
So basically this, because the funds have already been appropriated, this project can go forward pretty swiftly, but I very much believe in an open process. And I think that open process needs to be balanced with a certain kind of creative freedom. In other words, because this is a committee with live meetings, with open meetings that are live streamed, what we can do is advertise that, say, in November and December, we will be seeing mood boards. December, we'll be seeing 3 options for the sign, and we can invite the public to attend the meeting and weigh in on those design options before we as a committee vote on which design we go with. So I think we can kind of have it both ways. Essentially, we're asking a designer to exercise their creative vision with our input. And we can make sure that the public is aware of the steps in that process. Yeah, Anne.
One thing that I am a little concerned about with Cindy's design, which I agree with Ruben, is sort of, I like the idea of trying something new and getting something more quickly. But as I think Sonia had mentioned, she doesn't seem to have done any signs. And I'm sure that there are details about signs in terms of weatherproofness and ability to withstand winds and so on and so forth. Were we to choose her, I think I would feel better if she might explain to us how she plans to learn about how you create a weatherproof or weather resistant sign.
My response to that would be that that there are people who, there are a couple of things here. If we went with a very crafted sign, something that was like carved out of wood, that would be one direction. But if we went with a sign that was simply fabricated, sign fabricators know this inside and out. So that's really more on the fabrication side than on the designer side. And at this,
Yes and no, Conrad, because what I don't want is for us to absolutely fall in love with this fabulous design that ends up that in order to put the eye screws in to hang it up with, it's going to blow it apart, or it's going to be too heavy in order to accommodate the eyes to be able to be hung from anything other than a girder. I know I'm exaggerating here, but I just was about to send off an invitation for something for the library when I discovered that I had mismatched the day and the date. And that's basic reading of calendars. So
Mm.
I would just want to be assured that she was aware that there is a technological part, and not technological as in
I follow.
IT, but that this has a role to play that subjects it to snowplows and elements and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But on the other side, Medomic Design has also essentially crafted images that are then printed. I mean, they've worked with fabricators, and the fabricators are the ones who are responsible for the lamination, the screws, and so on. So I think the playing field is relatively level there.
Okay.
I was gonna say this is more about who's making the design, not who's making the sign, if that makes sense.
But to me, they have to play together.
Right.
They don't, she doesn't have to be able to make the sign,
Yeah.
but she has to know what has to be accommodated so that the sign can be made.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And actually, I do feel that no matter who we
Yeah.
choose, we should communicate that to the designer, whoever we end up choosing. They should know that we want to think holistically about it. That it's not just an abstract image, but it should be thought of as an object in the world, right?
Yeah.
Phrase it that way. But I'd phrase it like, you have to do the mechanics of it. You can come up with a beautiful idea, but how's it supposed to be put together and work?
Yeah.
And you'd
Super
have
smart.
to, the limits of what you can do, what transfers to the sign, so it's like, you can't use very thin writing, I would think, because it has to be readable, things like that.
Well, so
Yeah.
that would fall in the design part, but the sign fabrication. I'm
Well,
picking up what I know about painting metal and printing cases and doing the large building projects I have.
Mhm.
Once you get it off to a sign printer, these are places that are used to being handed an approved design and printing it. So things like letter width and all that, yeah, we need a designer that understands that. But I wouldn't expect either of these companies to have their artists trained on material for the sign.
All I want to know is that they're aware of it and that, say, oh, and I'm going to work with Joe's sign company down the street, that.
So is our expectation that either of these companies would also take on the contracting for the manufacture of the sign, or are we buying the skill and the art and then contracting that manufacture ourselves?
That is a question.
That's a good
Right.
point, yeah, so,
I would expect the second based on what we're doing.
yeah,
I was thinking that myself,
Yeah.
and that also is a question to me then about. We've got $7,000 to do this with, and does the $7,000? It sounds like it covers the design. And then we'll have to find additional money to do the manufacture and the install, is that correct?
I don't think so. I think that's covering the design and the fabrication of it. So we
Oh.
should think of it as being split. And both of these candidates are suggesting that their design fees would be roughly half or a little less than half of that 7,000.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
we know that it's about
Final
35.
files to sign producer. Yep, gotcha. Okay.
Do we know it? Is there any sense for who's responsible for having the actual sign manufactured once we have the art? Is that something we would ask Mac for help researching, or is that a bid thing?
I think that's an open question. It's part of the design process. As actually, Anne, you pointed out, we should be thinking about this holistically. So if the signs that we wanted to go with were more like of a crafty thing, in other words, like carved wood, that was sealed, weatherproofed, and so on, then it would be a different fabricator from someone who does it more like DOT, where it's just printed on metal, like think of like the Belfast signs up the road or something like that, like a metal sign. So the fabricator, maybe the designer does pick the fabricator, or maybe we work with the designer and we identify a fabricator. I can see that going in two directions based on that design process itself.
Is that a follow-up question that should be asked to the two competitors before we pick one?
that was my next question, because they brought it up. I think we should ask them to clarify.
Well,
Yeah. If she knows who she would work with as the sign manufacturer.
she says,
Or-
I can source and work with sign makers directly, but if there are specific individuals you'd like to utilize, let me know. And what does Madomic say? The EDC will in turn work with the town and Public Works Department to purchase and install the signs.
They're not gonna
That's
source with the manufacturer, so it's the
That's-
Public Works Department. They're assuming the
Well, that's
Public
what we
Works is
say,
gonna make the
actually.
sign.
Well, this is what we've said as part of the RFP under general information, I think. I mean, this is,
We've suggested that that's a possibility, that if it were within the scope of Public Works, they could do it themselves. Absolutely. But like I'm emphasizing, I don't think this depends on asking another question of these two candidates. I think that we need to make this part of the conversation once we choose that designer.
Okay.
Because the fabrication and the sourcing of it is going to be part of that design process.
Right, and that's what it says. When I read the Madomic one, it says we would coordinate as needed. With
I
sign
just saw that,
companies.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. The sign
So,
companies and the
Yeah,
public.
so that tells me they would see the process through.
Right. I will add another thing in favor of Cindy. Cindy does live in town. She lives just over on the other side of the river, and she's been very involved in events like at Art Walk, and she's in knitting circles, and she's very community minded. And I think this would be a great opportunity to bring her expertise to bear on the town. I think it would be a great contribution. And I say that fully appreciating the contributions that Madomic Design has made to the community since I think 2007 is when Brian moved here.
Been a while.
Yeah. So I'm appreciating both candidates here, and I think that this is a great opportunity for Cindy and for the town. And I am also kind of in Ruben's camp too. I just have responded very emotionally to Cindy's work. That it's to me, it's really speaking my language in terms of kind of coherent and emotionally driven design that I think would really serve this project, but also the rest of the stuff that we're talking about doing here. So that's where
I have one question.
Yeah.
What happens if we don't like it? What do we do if we aren't happy with it?
Can we back out?
Well, I mean, what do we do then? I mean, that's the thing, because we're flying blind in a sense. I know
Well-
Cindy said she would work with the committee, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, this is kind of why in the RFPs, you always want to see the references, you always want to
Mhm.
see what
Right.
their history has been. And I mean, Jen, you and Ann have given your perspective from at least Madomic Design. And Conrad gave his perspective from working with Sydney. You know, this is what's all taken into account. They're not gonna just give us the work before we pay them.
No, I know that.
But-
I'm just, you know what I'm thinking, Max.
Yeah.
You know how things go sometimes in town.
And, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's just gonna be it, where we have to go based on their history, which one we think will have this better experience to work with, so that we are more comfortable doing this investment.
Yep.
And who's gonna listen to us so that they can present something that matches what we're thinking.
Right. And I will add that as a creative artist, I know very well that the uncertainty that comes from somebody when they commission me to write a piece of music, for instance. I mean, they're going on what I've done in the past, but they have no idea if they're going to like what I do in the future. And as somebody from that perspective, I'm very comfortable with that uncertainty. You know, we're going off of what somebody has done in the past. And in the case of Cindy, she's worked with corporate clients. So we're talking about people who are very, very needy and very specific. And she's had great success working in those environments. So that tells me that she's gonna know, she's gonna be able to listen very precisely when we give feedback, and with people who come to our meetings give feedback. Also, Rebecca Waddell has chimed in here and she says, not that I can vote, but I prefer Cindy's presentation and agree on feel. Having something different would be nice.
Well,
Are there any other
leap. I don't know.
comments, questions?
Well, I make a motion to vote on a designer.
Second.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's more of just who would like to make the recommendation to the select board, and
Oh yeah, who are we recommending to the select board? So all votes for Madamic design.
Sonia.
I see one.
Yep.
And all votes for Cindy.
And Jen is doing the raised hand emotion.
We have 4-1 in favor of Cindy for this.
I suppose if we're gonna leap and try something new, we may as well and see what happens.
Okay.
But I
Uh,
guarantee you guys know how the challenges of trying to figure out something to represent the town. It's gonna be
Exactly.
interesting.
Yeah, so okay, so we make this recommendation to the select board, and then we will communicate with Cindy, and the first step is creating a mood board, and we can start talking about what we feel is important and what we kind of don't want to see, and we can begin this design process.
So I'll pass on the recommendation to I'll pass on this recommendation to the select board, show them Cindy's work as well as Madamic Designs, and should be voted on next week.
Okay,
So I have one other question. You
go
guys
ahead.
pulled
Sonia has her
together.
hand in. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sonia, what were you gonna say?
I've had some schooling in art, actually got a degree from it, and I did some graphic design and photography. Haven't done it for a while, but I don't remember them ever referring to a mood board. It's a term I'm unfamiliar with. I'd say layout, you know,
We had those
storyboard.
at LL Bean. Even when I was there, the designers would come in with mood boards. It was, it took a while for me to wrap my head around it.
Steve Fate Downey's magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked there for about a year.
I think it's a very non-committal way of starting a conversation to say, how are you feeling about this crazy purple color or this kind of crazy paisley pattern? It's to get immediate sort of emotional reactions from people without being overly specific. That's where it can be really useful, I think.
I've had colors that make me feel a
So-
certain
so-
kind of way, so I get it.
Yeah, are we looking at colors or we see a layout? Like an idea sketch of what they're thinking?
Well,
That's my question. I don't want to have a 5-hour debate about the color purple.
The very next step is going to be a very open conversation. In other words, if Cindy or the designer brings in, say, a bunch of pictures of like maritime objects here, and then a bunch of pictures of like farmers here, and then like these colors, we can immediately start to say like, I'm feeling this, I'm not feeling this, and then they've got something to work with in terms of coming up with actual design. Jen had a comment about.
I'm trying to remember what I was gonna say. That's funny. Yes, you guys came up with very quickly a survey for the art walk to try to get people's ideas about the Sylvania property. I wonder if we could not do something like that in this process at some point that might just reach out and get a broader response to some of the thoughts. I think I love getting more community input when we can. I think it helps all of our processes, and I'm not sure how it would be the best way to do it, but when's the last art walk?
October. We have
October. Maybe we could try to aim for that, to have a couple of things to run by, maybe even just colors or I don't know. When I think of the challenge of trying to represent a community as diverse as our community. When I say diverse, what I mean is coming from different perspectives more
Yeah.
than anything. But anyway, it's just my 2 cents.
I think it's a great point. And I guess I just want to emphasize that we don't have to be overly prescriptive with this. In fact, the gateway signs, like you see in a lot of towns, don't have to communicate everything. It can just be
True.
color and font, and then this can start to key into, the stuff that we want to continue doing in the town. So we don't have to put so much weight. We don't have to say that this sign has to carry everything we feel about the town.
Okay.
That's all I want to emphasize. It's just we want to keep this process moving forward. And I think that Jen made a great point. I think we can easily first of all, we can invite the public to come to a meeting and say, we will be looking at options or colors or whatever. Please come and weigh in. But then we should do like what Julie and the Sylvania Committee did at the Art Walk, and do a similar thing in a couple months. And
I
ask,
think that would be very cool.
yeah, it's a great idea. I think that's really all that we need to go over today. So the next step is make this recommendation to the select board, and theoretically in October we can have Cindy in to talk to her about a mood board and first steps and what we expect from her.
Great.
Super.
Anything to add?
When is the select board going to tell us?
I'm gonna talk with Julie. I'm gonna send a few emails right before I leave, and one of them will be to Julie and the select board to say, this is what the EDC recommended, and I'll do it tonight so that Pam can't tell me that I can't put it on the agenda on Thursday.
All right.
Great. And then I think what I'll do, and I'll CC everybody, is I'll just write her directly and say, this is when the meeting is, and can you bring some stuff in, and then we can have a conversation.
By the
Okay.
way, Sonia,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, on the last, I think it was the last 2 minutes that I saw that you were talking about what Thomaston is doing.
yeah, they have, it's museum in the streets. And then
Right.
you walk through.
Isn't that cool? Gloucester had one too. It was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
fun.
They have a very successful one in Wiscasset as well. And
Uh-huh.
I can't find it at the moment, but I grabbed one of the flyers and took a picture of they have sort of these large poster boards, I guess, signs throughout and it has all this information on it. And I think it's really kind of cool thing, because people then can walk themselves through and hear the stories based on the apps, because you can do a QR code on the phone, and then you listen to the story about that area and the history of it. I mean, we used to, before the gentleman died, he used to come and do walking tours several times a summer throughout the downtown and along the river and in some of the other areas, and they were a lot of fun.
So I have a minor thing to actually add on to that. I have actually spoken with Billy Maxwell very recently. He is looking at doing some signs that would go in town, and I'm working with him to see if I can get a grant for him so that it can be done next year.
I think that's a wonderful
Awesome. But
thing.
if people have recommendations in the village for good buildings with rich history, please let me or Billy know, or probably me know, because I think Billy's gonna be.
Do you remember, you remember Jean Lawrence? Do you remember
do.
Jean Lawrence? Yeah, Jean had a story for almost every single building in town.
Yeah, I'm sure.
She was amazing.
Sonia, you had a comment?
Yeah, well, I went up to the Historical Society the other day, and I looked up and I got a couple of history books on the town of Waldeboro, because I don't know anything. I know history of Rockland, I know Rockport, I know those, but I don't know Waldeboro. So I did that, and they were expensive, because I went to the library. The library has no Waldeboro history books on file at all.
Wow.
So you have to get them from the Historical Society, but there's one where there's someone did something on the buildings there. That's what brought it up. So,
Oh.
so I'll go check and stuff, but, yeah.
I have one more comment about the gateway signs. And I need to mention because Alec is not here, and I went on a little drive with him a few days ago. And he wanted to show me what he was thinking about going down from the town forest to the Worcester parking lot. And basically, the short version of it is he just wanted to see some more landscaping around the river as you approach the river from that side. In other words, limbing trees further up, making it easier to see the river as you're coming into town.
Oh.
Kind of the short version of what he was emphasizing. But he also made a suggestion, which I think is a really good one. When we do this gateway sign, one idea is that we could get rid of the current one as you're coming into the town forest area and the turnoff. And you'll notice that there's another blue sign before you get to the town forest, and it says museum, or it says I don't remember what it says. There are like 5 or 6 listings underneath where it says
Yeah.
Waldoboro Historic. Basically, the point of this gateway sign, if we were to put it in that median area between Route 1 and that town forest parking lot, is it would combine both functions. You could say, welcome to Waldoboro, business district straight ahead, Waldoboro Historic Village to the right. So that might be a way of combining both of those signs into one gateway sign that makes sense of that turnoff and doesn't confuse people. So in other words, if you want to go to the business district with some stores, go straight ahead. If you want to go to the village, take a right here. And then it's not this kind of confusing thing of like, where is Waldoboro? Is this Waldoboro or is that Waldoboro? Which
So
is kind
we-
of current.
The WBA financed that sign.
Which
and we're
one?
the one with all the different things, the categories. Because everybody was complaining that no one knew where anything was and there was no sign that says go to the village. And
Right.
so we came up with that and that was the only solution we could think of.
And it's not bad. It's not bad. But what I'm talking about doing is just trying to consolidate all this so that it's coherent.
I agree, because there's so many signs on the road, including the DOT signs that they allow businesses to purchase and pay for to try to direct people off of Route 1.
Right.
And when you're trying to pay attention to the traffic and the signs, it does get very, very confusing.
Yeah. So basically, I would love to talk to you separately, Jen, at another
Sure.
point about that process, how the WBA financed it and created that sign. But I actually think that's not a bad place for it, that little median area between that town forest and Route 1. And you could basically consolidate this, just have one big sign. It's like, this is Waldoboro. The village is over here. Other stores are here.
Right.
So
And someday we won't have such a huge divide between, someday it'll be different.
Sonia.
Yeah, the trouble with that one where it's the town forest, it's just a long road of residential houses and trees.
Yeah.
There's no sidewalk on it and it's a long ways down. So anybody being down that could be discouraged. My idea is you either have it down by the Hannaford or where they already have a walkway, which is across from there, because it puts you into the town right away. And it directs you downtown. There's sidewalks there and there's parks lining that road. But I could see you'd have to say, if you were gonna do it like that, you'd have to say 2 miles down the road. You'd have to let them know it's a long ways in.
And I agree with you, but I think that this whole design process is to kind of outline how do we bring it all together. And I think what you're saying and what I'm saying could be brought together, which is whatever font and language you use, like by the town forest, historic village down this way, is exactly the same as the sign that's down where you're talking about on Jefferson, Waldoboro Historic Village, or whatever. If we decide, we just have to pick a phrase. Is it historic village? Is it historic district? Is it village? Whatever phrase we use, it has to be just consistent at each of the places where you can go to the village. Because right now it's all over the place. I mean, there's a DOT sign that says Waldoboro 1 mile that way. There's, you know what I'm talking about. You get my point. It's just about making it all consistent so that you say, oh, you can get to the village from this way or this way. All right. Oh, hi. We have a newcomer.
Well,
Ironically, that's the end of the meeting.
Oh, come on.
I guess that's all for now. Unless anybody has additional comments.
I mean, Jan's here if we want to hear the food pantry statistics.
I don't know if I have today's numbers yet. Let me check.
Well,
I might.
Or you came all this way, whatever you want to talk about.
Well,
Okay, I do. Want to hear it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had our distribution today. Total households, 169, which we've kind of seen that. So the numbers have been consistently over 150 for months, like for a long, long time. We had 2 new households from Waldoboro. Total people receiving food today, 420.
Wow.
Let's see if there's anything interesting here. Children of the 420, children 129, adults 219, seniors 72. So it was another really super busy day. So one of the things, I get to do deliveries. And one of the things, for the first time that I can remember, we're delivering food to every, I want to say every apartment, but like there's 4 apartments per building in Waldoboro Village, for example. And 2 of those buildings we're delivering to every apartment in the building.
Hmm.
So
Huh.
we're, it's busy.
Huh.
So that's the update.
Thank you.
Sure. Glad
Nice.
I came.
Yeah. Okay. I call this meeting adjourned, and we'll see you next month.